Hi everyone, it's Miss Ose here, the math interventionist. Today we're going to do a lesson on area and perimeter. Before we get started though, I just want to say that we all miss you all so much. We hope that you are doing well, staying safe at home. We're upset that we cannot be at school learning together, but we also know that this is a really unprecedented time. We're trying hard to keep everybody around us safe. And I hope that you all are doing the best that you can to help out your family, to help out yourselves, and to stay safe and healthy. All right, so let's get started. We're going to address these Common Core standards today in our lesson. All right, our objective today. I can apply my knowledge of repeated addition and multiplication to the concepts of area and perimeter. I will solve for area and perimeter of 5 objects as I design a garden blueprint. All right, so look at the pages above this objective. These are from your take-home packet that you should have received. If you did not get your take-home packet from school, my email is going to be at the end of this lesson. Please email me and I will be able to email you back all of these worksheets. And even if you don't have a printer at home, you can just use the worksheets to write down on a blank sheet of paper what to do, what your garden will look like. That's all you should need. So let's review. What is area? What is perimeter? Most of us should have learned this in 4th grade, some of us in 3rd grade, but it's okay if you need a little bit of a reminder. We're going to watch a video in a second that should give you a pretty good idea of these concepts. We're also going to answer the question, how do I find the area and perimeter of a rectangle? You are going to be finding the area and perimeter of rectangles. In addition to, at the end, you're going to complete your garden design, which makes you kind of make up all of the area and perimeters of your own shapes. All right, so we're going to take a minute. We're going to watch this video, make sure you pay attention, and we're going to apply the concepts that we learn to this lesson today.
It's the year 2060 and you're colonizing Mars. You're about to buy a plot of land, but you have a dog and you want to make sure he has enough space to run around. You also want to build a fence so he can't escape. So first you want to know how big the backyard is, and then you want to know how far it is around. To figure this out, you have to find
the area. That's the space inside. For a rectangle, its length and width are multiplied. And perimeter, the distance around the shape. Just add the sides together and then you'll be great with the area. That's the space inside. For a rectangle, its length and width are multiplied. And perimeter, the distance around the shape. Just add the sides together and then you'll be great. Yeah, here I am on Mars, trying to find out the size of my backyard. Well, it's a rectangle, right? So what if we cut it into squares of the same size that are 1 unit long by 1 unit wide? These are called square units. Add them all up, surprise! You got 72 square units, or feet, cause that's the unit we're using. Well, who has time to count squares? Length times width is the quickest way to get there. Yeah, that's how you find the area. A nice little formula that'll take care of you. And I need to hurry cause my dog is starving. Let's find the area so I can feed Marvin. My yard is 9 feet long by 8 feet wide. I get the area when I multiply each side. And 9 times 8 is 72. But here's another way for you to think it through. Basically, you take the rows and figure how many square units fit inside of those. Yo, my backyard is wide, 8 feet. So that's 8 rows with 9 square units in each. So multiply the 8 rows by the 9 square units, you get 72. Yup, you knew it. The area, that's the space inside. For a rectangle, its length and width are multiplied. And perimeter, the distance around a shape. Just add the sides together and then you'll be great with the area. That's the space inside. For a rectangle, its length and width are multiplied. And perimeter, the distance around a shape. Just add the sides together and then you'll be great. Now I've got my area for my yard on Mars, and there's plenty of room for Marvin to live large. But now I need a fence, cause I heard the animals on Mars could be intense. So I'll need a perimeter, the distance around my whole yard. How do you get it? You just add up the length of the sides. 9 plus 8 plus 8 plus 9's a perimeter of 34 feet. And oh yeah, that's regular units and not units squared. So let's take a look from another angle. angle. To get the perimeter of a square or rectangle, you add 2 widths plus 2 lengths. Here's a formula, don't forget to say thanks. 2 times length plus 2 times width to get a square or rectangle's perimeter quick. So let's try it with my Martian backyard. Come on, get ready, y'all. It's not that hard. 2 times the length of 9 is 18. And 2 times the width of 8 is 16. And 16 plus 18 is 34. Now if I could stop Marvin from making a dirty floor. Ooh, come on, Marvin. Seriously.
Okay, so now we've learned that area is the space inside of a rectangle or inside of a shape. It's all of those squares that you see right there. If you counted all of those squares up, that would be its area. To find the area of a rectangle, we can take its length, that's kind of the blue edge, and we can take its width, that's the yellow edge, and multiply them. If we take those numbers, the number of squares on that side, the number of squares on the width, and multiply them, we get the area. Perimeter is the distance around the shape. So if you just take the garden and you're saying, okay, if I just measure the fence that it would take to put around this area, or just how many squares long this side is, plus that side, plus that side, plus that side, you just add up all those sides together and you'll be great. You'll have the perimeter. Okay, so let's check your understanding. Please get out a sheet of paper, get a pencil, and get ready to find the area and perimeter of the shapes that I'm going to give you. All right, take a look at this square. Remember that a square is also a rectangle, so we can apply the same understanding to this shape as well. I have used graph paper and labeled the sides already with the amount of squares that are at the top, that's the length, and then the amount of squares that are at the side, that's the width. I've already found the area for you. Remember, area means we're multiplying the length and the width. So I did 3 times 3 is 9, but you have to figure out the perimeter. Go ahead, use this time to figure it out. Okay, we're about to move on. I'm going to show you how I found the answer. If you haven't found it yet, please pause the video, work it out on your own, and then press play. Okay guys, so this is how I solved this problem. Remember, we're counting up the sides to help us understand how long it is. 1, 2, 3 squares. It's already written there. And 1, 2, 3 squares as the width. It's written right there. I found the area by taking the length times the width, multiplying them together to find 9 units squared. That is the area all the way on the inside of this square. To find the perimeter, remember, we're just measuring the distance around the shape. That means I'm saying, okay, this space, just the length of this side of it is 3. That means I take that length, I do 3. I'm going to add this width. I already know that it's going to be 3 because squares have the same width on both sides. So I'll just put 3 right here. And remember to add that 3. We need to add the bottom length. That's still 3. And we need to add the other width. That's 3. Think in your head, what is 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3? You should have gotten 12. I'm going to write 12 units as the answer. All right, let's look at this rectangle. I've labeled the length and the width of this rectangle. And I've given you the perimeter. It's got a little cut off. It says 12 units is the perimeter. I want you to find the area. Please remember, how do we find the space in the middle? How do we find the area? Use this time to figure it out on your own. Pause the video if you're not ready, and then watch how I figure it out. Okay, let's take a look at this rectangle. Right away, when I see the blank sides, it makes me really want to label them because I know that will be easier coming up. I know that a rectangle always has the same length widths on both sides, but you can also see that this is just one square long. Same thing with the length. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I know that this is 5 squares, 1 square, 5 square, and 1 square. We can check that by looking at the perimeter. The perimeter is 12 units. That means I probably did 1 plus 1, both of these sides, plus 5, plus 5. 1 plus 1 plus 5 plus 5 is 12. Now remember, area means that we are finding the space inside, all the way inside. Basically, I want to take how many squares does it take to fill it up. Using the picture, I can actually kind of see it. There's 1 square here, 2 squares, whoops, it's right there. 3 squares, 4 squares, and 5 squares. But let's use our equation to figure it out. 1 is the width times the length. 1 times 5 is what? 5. That's the same thing as the amount of squares in the middle. The area is 5 units squared. All right, for this rectangle, I did not label the sides. I did not label the length. I did not label the width. I want you to look at the squares, look at the answer for the area, and try to figure it out. Remember, area equals length times width. So we could guess, 1 times 8 equals 8, but I don't see a side that has 1 square, and I don't see a width or a length that has 8 squares. I see a different measurement, so make sure that you count it up, you figure out how I found the area, then find the perimeter. Okay, pause the video if you're not ready, then press play when you're ready to see how I did it. Okay, let's look at this shape. I'm going to count up the length. That's 2. 1, 2, 3, 4 is the width. And let's go ahead and label all of them just so I don't get confused. All right, so I know that the area is 8 units. That means I probably took the width, 4, times the length, or remember, the length times the width will give us the same thing. 2 times 4 is going to be equal to the same thing as 4 times 2. That will give us 8. The perimeter is, remember, the distance around the shape. All we're doing is just measuring how many squares it takes to get around the shape. We're going to do repeated addition to figure this out. 4 plus 2 plus 4 plus 2. If you need to, you can write it down as you go so that you don't get confused. The answer is 12. The perimeter is 12 units. Okay, this is not a rectangle. This is not a square. This is an unusual shape. I gave this to you as a challenge. So I want you to remember what area is. What is area? Use that understanding to try to figure out the answer. What is perimeter? Think about it. Draw this object. Count up the sides. Count up the middle. Try to figure it out and press pause, then play when you're ready to see how I did it. Okay, now remember, area is the space inside. I could count up the squares, or I could kind of section this shape off into 3 different rectangles. See, that's one rectangle, that's another rectangle, that's another rectangle. Today, let's just count the squares. So remember, area is the space inside. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares. 6 units squared. Perimeter on this shape is a little bit more complicated. I'm gonna label it so that I don't forget. You know what? I'm not gonna label it. I'm just gonna mark as I go so that I remember to count off each single square side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, I counted 14 square sides total around that whole shape. That means that the perimeter is 14 units. You could also do it by saying, this side is 2 squares long, this is 1, this side is 1, this side is 1, this side is kind of tricky. 2, this side is 1, this side is 3, this side is 3, so I would add 1 plus 2 plus 3, that's going to be 6, plus 3, that's 9, plus 1, that's 10, plus 2, that's 12, plus 2 more, that's 14. Okay? Okay, now I want to review real quick. We're not using standard units of measurement when we're talking about our garden design or any of these examples. If we were using standard units of measurement, I would be saying, how many inches wide is this? How many centimeters long is this? We might talk about feet squared or yards squared, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about non-standard units of measurement. That means that you could say, oh, this green bar is 6 hand lengths long, or this pencil is 10 cubes long. We're using this kind of graph paper, like this blue graph paper in the corner, and just saying, okay, if I measure this side, it's going to be 10 squares long. Not 10 inches, not 10 feet. We're just talking about 10 squares. Okay, so we just use the squared notation for units because we're not talking about perimeter just with flat side. We're talking about all the inside area of this shape. That's kind of taking us from a flat line to this filled in shape. That's why we do units squared, not just units. Keep that in mind. Okay, now let's look at your garden design. Take out the rest of your pieces of paper, and I'm going to give you an example of how I would do one of the shapes for the garden. Okay, everyone, for this assignment, you need to circle 5 items that you would want to have in your garden. You're going to plan out this whole garden on this page. You're going to draw out all of these different objects that you want in your garden, but it says that you have to choose 5 of them. Now, the tricky part about this is that you need to choose the objects, you need to list them here, but they will only say perimeter and not their area. Or this one will only say its area and not its perimeter. So you have to design the shape on here and figure out what the carrots or the root vegetables area is, or you would have to draw the area of the corn section and figure out its perimeter. So I'm going to show you how I would choose to do that real quick. All right, I'm going to choose to add beans to my garden. And remember, this is us drawing kind of the area, the shape of the bean section of our garden. This tells me that there are 14 square units for its area. Area equals 14 units squared, or square units. That's how they write it. We need to figure out the perimeter. Now, area, remember, equals length times width of a rectangle. I'm gonna choose to make all of these shapes rectangles because we know the formula, but remember we did practice a tricky one. If you wanna challenge yourself and draw a shape kind of like that or a weird shape, make sure that it matches the area and you're fine. You can do that too. But I'm gonna say 14. That means that the inside of my rectangle has to have 14 squares, 14 rectangles shaded in. So let me think. What times what equals 14? Think in your head. What times what equals 14? I can think right away that 1 times 14 would give us 14. That means we would have to do 1 times 14. I don't really want to do a shape like that. I don't like that. I'm going to do 2 times 7 because I know that that will get me 14. So I'm going to pick an area. I'm going to do 2 for the length and actually 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the width. That means that I've chosen to do 7 on this side, 7 on that side, 2 on this length, 2. All right, we've reached the end of the lesson. We've completed our objective. Now you can apply your knowledge of repeated addition and multiplication to the concepts of area and perimeter. You can solve for area and perimeter of 5 objects as you design a garden blueprint. You are ready. Please complete the rest of your garden design that was included in the packet. Make sure you draw it out. Make sure you label, include the perimeter and the area on the table. When you're done, take a picture and email it to my email address. It's right there, joas@gaschools.org. If you have any questions, you can email me that as well. I'm happy to talk you through and talk on the phone if you need any additional help. I hope that you guys are working hard, that you take your learning seriously, that you're reading books, that you're helping out your siblings and your family, and that you are staying safe, healthy during this time. We miss you. Have a great week.